Hey everybody, this moves. I'm trying to do a new um, angle so it would not look like I'm just lazily lying on the recliner, even though I am lazily lying on the recliner. But yeah, and yeah, this is not, by the way, not here. Everything is opposite. This is just the leather, getting the tan is getting off. Unfortunately, it's not a new sofa, so I probably look like sometimes a little bit like a hobo. Maybe I am a little bit, I guess. Look, I wanted to say something before this video. I know that I come across probably for some people as someone who's looking for trouble, and but I'm not. All I do is I'm trying to basically be the judge of. When I say the judge, I mean like judge, certain aspects of the benzo harm community, heroes that to save people from that are in the benzo withdrawal, situation, from making mistakes. And it's obviously my opinion. If you are going with someone and he's working, like it works well for you and all of that, more power to you. That's all good. This is my personal opinion about certain things that I see, and I'm using common sense. I am not a medical professional. I am not a doctor or anything like that. We already saw the doctors, and like you'll see in this video, because I'm basically going through Josef Witt-Doerring's website and seminar video, that he agrees with me that doctors don't know, and that's why those services exist. But I find that in this world, there's not a lot of people that are like available, or unknown. You can count them on 10, on 10 fingers, I would say, or maybe 20, but not a lot, especially with benzo coaches. And so, when I do those videos, I prefer to be positively, surprised, because what my goal is that people would have access to information that is accurate, will have support that they expect, and will not fall into traps. And so, and that's what I'm doing. So obviously, I don't want to be the guy that people are afraid to talk to, because they think, for example, that if I make those videos that are a bit of like a this video, I would expose them too, or something of that sort. And that's not the case. It's exactly the opposite. So when I talk to people, when I try to help people that are benzo harmed, that they need help with tapering, or help, or just someone to hold their hand and talk to them, no matter what you'll do, it's confidential. So I'll never ever expose it. In fact, the reason I mentioned it is because I did talk to a lady that I really appreciate, and she really appreciates me. But she told me, like, she in the withdrawal, she's obviously getting quite paranoid about everything, which is completely normal when you are having a fight or flight response. And she basically said something about a benzo coach. I didn't agree with it, and then she was like, "Oh my God, are you going to say something?" And your videos. And I'm like, no, never. When you are talking to me online, I might mention what I would do is, if I think that someone is giving a bad advice, I might mention it in context, not the names of those coaches and not the names of you or anything like that. I would make sure that it's very anonymous, to the point that there's no way that someone can recognize those people. But what I will do, because that's the ethical thing to do, and obviously the legal thing to do. I'm not here looking for lawsuits, right? But yeah, I mean, it's just if you have a problem, if they did something to harm you, and you don't, I would not. I would never do, like, mention names if it's not my own experience, because then it's like just hearsay. And also because I respect extremely the people that talk to me and everything. And so that would be, confidential. However, if a coach talks to me or someone who's making money out of this situation, and I believe that what they're doing is wrong. When I say wrong, I mean I think that there's something dodgy about what they're doing, or I know for a fact that what they're offering is against recommendations and the best interest of the community. I would expose it. I would not. It would be only if they if they actually talk to me. So even if they, for example, someone, like I made a bad review of someone that that I've sort of tried or something like that. If they, for example, come to me and say, hey, listen, try to threaten me with defamation lawsuit or anything something like that, then I would immediately report it. So that's not a good strategy by for anyone to use. And also, I would, I much rather those people, which is the best benefit for the community as a whole, would address what I've mentioned, write, a correspondence or post a comment themselves, not through proxies. Post a comment explaining that, and if I think that I did something wrong on my side, or caused was unfair in any way to them, then I would delete the video, or I would edit it, or I would add a disclaimer, because the last thing I want is that for me not to be able to work with other people out of fear, and B, for the community to be harmed. So if someone is doing something that has you can prove it to me, you can show me listen, I'm a good guy, I'm doing the right thing, I'm all for it, okay? And all of this disclaimer and all of those things, because this video is freaking going to be, I think, 3 hours, and there is and I didn't expect it to be at this video. I was going to go to the tapering clinic website, see how much it cost. I know it costs a lot, but I wanted to be fair and see it. And what I was exposed to was a very, very long video that seemed to me, again, my opinion, that it's sort of there's a lot of I can heal you, I promise you, and then basically from the middle of the movie, they say, press this button. Basically, you get tired of watching this whole video, I would assume, and you press it. But at the end of the video, that's when it takes a very long time, and that's where he actually puts his plan, explains his plan, and also gives disclaimers that contradict, in my opinion, again, everything that he said before about who he accepts, how all of those things. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to edit it in a way where you see those disclaimers at the beginning of the video, so you don't have to go through it. And I'm literally walking through the video and explaining it. It's a very long video because his video is very long. I'm stopping a lot and I'm giving my opinion about things. It's probably not for everybody. So another disclaimer: if you are in withdrawal and you have high anxiety and things trigger you badly, don't watch this video. You don't have to. I'm not doing this to I know that people that were in my situation, I have lived experience, are not looking for videos like that to scare them. And I'm trying not to scare anybody. All I'm saying is that, in my humble opinion, there's issues that I want to share, and there's red flags, and I'm looking for those red flags everywhere because I fell into those red flags. I was going through people that promised me the world and gave me nothing, and I know a lot of people that have gone through the same route. And like I said, everything I'm saying right now does not mean that he's a bad person, or that he's doing things on purpose or malicious, or trying to or doesn't actually help people. I'm pretty sure he helps people if you have 30 to 40 grand. But it is important for me to, if you don't have the time or the energy to watch his whole video, uh, at least with my video here, you can actually go back and forth. You can't with his. We'll get into it in the video. So, with that being said, we can start. Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about Dr. Josef and his clinic and the cost and all of those things. I contacted Dr. Josef last month, and I asked. I said, we'll just watch the. I'll just give you some background. Dr. Josef is quite a known figure in the benzo harm world in terms of people watching his channel, and unfortunately, because if we were benzo withdrawal, it's actually quite triggering. The videos that he put, they're very sensational and like using like a lot of really bad, like really like very scary stories. When I was in benzo withdrawal, I used to watch his channel quite, sometimes. And someone would put like in the groups would put a link, or like in the little chats that I had with other benzo harm people, we would discuss for many hours lots of benzo coaches, and some gossip about how much they take, and how if they're helpful or not, or what they do. And I know this person and went to this guy, and all sorts of things like that, because you're looking for help, you're looking for and he's promising to help. But then a lot of people would say, oh, he costs so much money, you can't afford him. And I was thinking, this guy, like, why do they say that he costs so much money? So I did send a message to him after this, and I said, hi there, I'm currently doing some research into benzo coaches, and I followed over the last 2 years Dr. Josef Witt-Doerring videos on YouTube. I would like to get some information about your program and how much does it cost to get help from your clinic. Also, if you could give more information about the background of starting the clinic and specifically going into the field of benzo tapering clinical help, that would be awesome. Cheers, Guy Rothenberg. I got a reply from a patient concierge. So, red flag. I always like to say to people, look for the red flags. When someone is a patient concierge and not a customer service person, you're going to pay through the nose, or that something is like, there is a reason why it's so magical that you have a concierge. It's like virtually going to take you by the hand, take your car keys off you, and escort you to your suite. Guys, he's not a patient concierge, it's just a customer service person. Or like, if you're like, I was used to be an Airbnb host, and when the customer service, and I'm not comparing it to this, I don't know if that's a fair comparison or not. I'm just saying that, when Airbnb changed the name of the customer service to like a customer service ambassador, or like a service ambassador, that's when the customer service experience went way down, unfortunately, during the pandemic. And then I stopped working with them because it was too much. But yeah, I mean, I don't like this, those things, that patient concierge. But that's fine. Okay, I don't want to. I know that people would think, "Oh my God, he's being judgmental already." But I'm giving it a chance. So it's like, "Hey, guy, thanks for your email. I would be happy to discuss this with you. We help individuals safely and successfully discontinue the medication use once and for all. In our program, patients will work directly with Dr. Josef and taper coach to create and implement a taper plan. There are regular check-ins with staff to manage any symptoms and adjust the tapering process accordingly." They don't actually mention what it means, but I assume that that's why they want you to talk to you on the phone to sort of close the deal. I'll just mention that I already recorded this video, and it was so long once I went through all these like seminar thing and everything and made comments, that I ended up in the whole room on my hard drive. So I had to re-record it. So I already know some things, but basically, what I'm saying is, like, I know that my videos are also long, and I'm not going to but I'm not trying to sell anything by doing them, and you'll see in a second what I mean. It's like it just seems like it's like a big, it's like how they try to get you to like sell you something online. It's like classic, you know, marketing. So we'll get to that in a second. But if you like to hear about the success stories, you can check out here. So it's client successes. Regarding costs, they vary based on the patient complexity. However, they are generally comparable to a few months in drug detox program. Fees typically range from $30K to $40K for a year of care. So I don't think I don't know, didn't really understand if that means that it's going to be 30K to 40K for a year of care, means that they see you every week or something like that, or or you get more things. They don't mention, again, they want you to talk to them so that they kind of like I'll definitely. I mean, if I'll just be honest with them and just say, like I live in Australia. He's from Australia, but I'm pretty sure because of his accent, and Mark Horowitz as well. And it's interesting. They both ended up in overseas in the UK and the US. Mark Horowitz is in the UK, and he and Josef is in the US. But yeah, it's I won't be applicable because I live in Australia, and he only seems to be only servicing the US. But we'll get to that too. Regarding costs, like I said, most patients will pay a deposit and then make monthly payments for the remainder. After completing a free discovery call, once again, a very kind of like marketing, like a little bit like if they're trying to sell you like a timeshare. I'm sorry, I'm sorry if I'm being rude when I say that, but that's like, the names that they use. With Dr. Josef, he can give you a precise quote. If you'd like to learn about why Dr. Josef started Hyperclinic, he talks about it in the beginning of this video, and that's the video that, when you go to this website. So let's go to his website. Please let me know if it can be of further assistance. Warbly, Josie. Okay, they even have a logo. It's serious stuff, right? So let's go to Dr. Josef, and this is his video, and you can see immediately it's kind of sensational. Which, by the way, I agree. There's a lot of horror stories, but it seems like all his interviews are with horror stories and stuff like that, and it's very triggering. I mean, it definitely doesn't make you want to watch them when you're in taper withdrawal. I'm pretty sure that I'll have some videos like that too, including this one maybe. But I feel that it's really important to give to judge those coaches from a perspective of someone who's been in withdrawal, and it's very, very difficult when you're in withdrawal. Okay, so I got like a message, but we'll talk about it, but I'll see it later. But yeah, but it's important that people would do that work for people that are in withdrawal, for because when you're in withdrawal, you feel like so much anxiety. You just look for for a rope to save you, and sometimes you don't do your due diligence, which is what I'm doing right now. So let's go. I did a little calculation of what it means. I took $30,000. That's US dollars, by the way. It's quite expensive for a year. Now, again, I'm not 100% sure why it's for a year. I think that it would make much more sense if it was a weekly or monthly payment, because you don't know how much the time your taper would last. And yeah, I mean, I don't. Again, red flag when they talk about a yearly. I also don't know why they say a yearly. Because if you, it's quite intimidating when someone tells you $30,000 a year. You're like, I don't have that kind of money. Most people don't. But if you actually dive down and say, okay, if I get 2 hours of professional help every week, I assume. I don't know. I can ask them, but I would have preferred if they just told me without me making the discovery call with Dr. Josef. But basically, if you just calculate it, even like just 1 hour every, that's $576. Definitely a lot of money, but not out of the realm of like psychiatry help. And if you have, it's in the US, and it's a shitty system that is like completely private, and if you don't have insurance, you're fucked, and you basically can, uh, you know, go live in the streets, and it's such a horrible system, the health system there. But in Australia, you also pay like about $600 for a psychiatrist, but you get $400 back from the government. And the problem is that because it's there's such a shortage of psychiatrists, and I see people like he's probably making money, and he's busy because people would pay. It's a big problem, so people would pay. But in any case, it's not that bad, the way that I see it. When you actually look at it from like a weekly perspective, but I don't know if they talk to the people weekly or daily, or it could be like even better value if they actually have group sessions. They say in the website they have group sessions and things like that. So I'm not like with the money. I just think it's a horrible way to market yourself, to just say $30K a year. It should be like a weekly, let's say like a weekly plan, and that includes like an hour of like private, but it doesn't actually say that you actually see him. You see a taper consultant who's not a doctor, and is not a thing. By the way, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just a peer like you who's been harmed by benzos, and will need to taper also a very hard drug to taper, which is paroxetine. So again, what I'm saying is I'm not trying to defame anybody. I'm just talking about how I see things from my perspective. When I was looking for help, that's what I heard. And unfortunately in the US, if someone is based in the US, I think they rely, again, that's just a speculation, on the insurance money, which is why the prices are so crazy. Anyone who's been ever admitted to a hospital in the US would testify that the price that they give like privately to people is just insane, and they just in a weird system they start to negotiate with the insurance companies, and basically it's, if you have to pay it privately, you're doomed. It's really bad. But okay, let's have a look. So we have this taper clinic, and what he said, and you see all those videos of like people having fun in the bush, an old man able to celebrate the birthday of his grandson, or a great grandson. Everyone's happy. Marketing. Marbury inquiry discovered the three-step method helping men and women finally and safely taper off their psychiatric medication. Currently accepting patients in California, Texas, New York, New Jersey, lots of places, states in the US. Should you want the help, will be a link to book a call with us at the end of the video. Let's get to that, okay? Let's start. Now, when you put it, you see that I already put in some stuff here. Guy, I put it my email. It's kind of funny because they ask you for which country you're from, but from what they're saying, they're actually just working with part of the US rather than worldwide. And when I put Australia, and I actually made sure that I don't have any blockers or anything like that, so you don't actually able to find the state. The state field is still there, and you can only choose one of the states in the US. So it's kind of funny. I used to be a programmer. I'm an IT professional, and I did websites like that, and that should be pretty easy to fix. But I would also imagine that because they're working in the US, I wouldn't even have that option. But let's start the video. Discover the 3 methods that help men and women finally and safely taper off the psychiatric medication without excessive disruption to work, relationship, or daily life. So because I already watched some of this video, I can tell you right now, immediately when I saw that, I was like, okay, another red flag. You don't say that with minimal disruption, maybe, to work relationship. You need to use a word that makes, you don't promise people things that you can't promise. with medication, with anything in medicine, when you see another red flag, when you see someone promising you a 100%, and they do use intense disruption. So what is an intense disruption? And like what is the definition? There's no definition for that. So they're still not liable if they say we didn't say without disruption. We said without intense disruption. What is an intense disruption? No one can promise you that, unfortunately. Like it can either go like. It goes all the way from people who's been on it for decades and just cold turkey stopping it and not having any problems to people like me being on it for a month and having to taper over 2 years almost. So, it's not, it's very hard to just tell something like that, but let's get started.
Hi, welcome to the webinar. I'm Dr. Josef Witt-Doerring, and today we're going to be talking about the 3-step method helping men and women finally and safely taper off their psychiatric medication. And this is going to be without intense disruption to their work, relationships, or daily life.
So again, he repeats what he said before, but now watch this.
And yes, this works even if you take multiple psychiatric meds or if you've been on them for decades.
Guys, no one can promise you that if you're on multiple psychiatric drugs or even just one, or if you've been on them for decades for sure, that you're going to have what you consider to be a non-severe withdrawal side effects. It's a red flag.
But before we start, I want to make sure that we do a few things. Just make sure you've got your sound turned on and that you have a pen and paper handy, because what I'm about to share with you could very well change the entire way you think about tapering off your psychiatric medications.
I want you to notice something. You can't actually, it's a video, but you can't actually go back and forth. That's a marketing tactic where you basically have to watch the whole thing. It's quite long. Brace yourself. I already watched half of it, and it was very long. I'm not 100% sure how much time, but it was pretty long. And yeah, it's a problem where you basically it's a little bit like going to a timeshare seminar, and you basically they lock you inside the room for the whole time. But yeah, let's watch it.
So
on the other hand, you can think everything he says is very important, so you have to watch the whole thing. But yeah, people that are in withdrawal and or like having like severe anxiety and things like that, they should have the option to stop and go back and listen again for at least.
I'll ask you a couple things. Have you ever noticed that no one seems to be talking about just how difficult it is to come off psychiatric medications?
No, because people do talk about it. Unfortunately, it's a known issue. Some people don't know because they never took it, or but a lot of people take it, and it's not an unknown thing. Maybe it has been in the past for sure, but I think these days people talk about it.
Or that there are hundreds of thousands of people convening on online forums like Benzo Buddies, Surviving Antidepressants, Facebook groups, trying to figure out how to get off.
It's not hundreds of thousands. Benzo, with at least with the groups. First of all, Benzo Buddies, he'll talk about it later. It also makes some sort of like a number. But in Benzo Buddies, I'm not sure how many people are, but the number of people in the Facebook groups, which is easy to watch, to see, the biggest benzo group that I'm aware of has 12,000 people. The other ones have a few thousands, and usually it's the same people, because people join all the groups that they can, and to learn what they're doing wrong. And we're talking about, maybe with the SSRIs, it could be more than that, but I don't know if it's hundreds of thousands. It's definitely, I'm only talking from the benzo point of view. Benzo is a big problem. It's actually the most prescribed drug in some countries, and one of the most prescribed drugs. And thankfully, it stops right now. It's starting to stop. But like I said, it's as problematic, if not more, than SSRIs, at least, or antidepressants and things, and other drugs. And it's it's not that number. Sorry.
Their psychiatric meds, or that most doctors seem completely clueless when it comes to getting people off their psychiatric medications. So if you've noticed those things, I want you to know that I have too. And that's why I've spent nearly a decade getting to the bottom of what I believe is a silent epidemic, a gap in the medical system that is leading to people being stuck on their psychiatric medications with no way of getting off. But more on that in a moment, because first, I want you to know that this presentation is for you if you're sick of having to rely on doctors and pharmacies to get access to your medications, if you've been thinking about coming off your psychiatric meds for months or maybe even years, but you just haven't known how to, and if you're tired of taking medications that leave you 20 pounds heavier, feeling forgetful, or even numbed out, kind of like a zombie.
I don't know if the fact that I've lost 15 kilograms when I was tapering, and then I gained it all back when I was feeling better. It could also be the CBD oil because I have been eating more, and I was going through hummus like crazy, and lots of it, like 400 grams a day. So I'm pretty sure that has to do with that too. But I was doing it also because it was one of the ways to, when I was on sertraline and when I was on Prozac, I did notice, first of all, the numbed out zombie. Definitely I have, and he's talking about it later, about all the things that I did experience, obviously from this. I have to say that with the weight gain, I blame myself. When I was taking it, I did do a keto diet, and I lost 20 kilos, and then I gained it back. Weight is a problem, not just for people that take those drugs. It's a problem worldwide, I guess.
Zombie. So this is Humpty Dumpty, and in just a little bit, I'm going to share with you what he has to do with everything that you need to know about safely coming off your psychiatric medications once and for all. But first, I want to share that my promise to you is that by the end of this presentation, you are going to discover our specialized tapering protocol that will help you finally and safely taper off your psychiatric meds. And that's going to be without severe withdrawal symptoms like brain zaps, insomnia, severe anxiety. It's also going to get you off without the risk.
Bad thing to do. A doctor should never promise you anything. People should never promise you anything. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a mental health professional by trade, but I know that that you can't promise anything in this world, and doctors know, good doctors know that they can't promise you to have any protocol of tapering without severe withdrawal symptoms, protected withdrawal injury, confusion, and uncertainty. I'll just give you an example. Tolerance withdrawal. So when you become tolerant to the drug, after a certain, like the amount that you're taking, your body gets used to it, and you already suffer from withdrawal symptoms because the body just, you basically have tolerance to the drug. You can have severe withdrawal, and you can't do anything about it. Unfortunately, there might be, like I said, I took stuff that helped me, but I don't know of anything that, or anyone that can help someone who is intolerant to withdrawal to just not have withdrawal symptoms, unless he's going up. Mark Horowitz actually talks about it in his book. If maybe you updose a little bit, and then become stable again, and then start a taper while when you're stable again. But you can't have a promise. My promise to you is a bad sentence to have in a medical. As a doctor, in any case, in any kind of illness.
Risk of the dreaded consequences, things like protracted withdrawal, and it's going to help you through these steps without all of the uncertainty that comes along with tapering. And yes, this is going to work even if you've already tried to taper with your doctor, or maybe you've done more of a do-it-yourself taper using online protocols that you've found. With this protocol, you're going to know that you are taking the safest steps off medications, and you're never going to have to ask yourself or wonder, am I doing this the right way?
Always wonder. Never put all your faith on one doctor or one system. Always wonder. Always ask for proof. Always, even if you don't. It's just like, yeah.
With this protocol, you're going to taper with the least amount of withdrawal symptoms, and that's going to allow you to show up at work, show up for your family and for your kids in the best possible way while you're going through this. And with this protocol, you're going to finally and safely come off your medications, and you're going to experience the physical health that comes with being medication-free, but also that sense of security, knowing that you are in full control of your emotions.
When you take these drugs, not just benzos, but any drugs, antipsychotics and things like that, you take them for a reason. If you have been on drugs, or psychiatric drugs, for certain reasons that actually need, like bipolar disorder or severe anxiety and depression, that sometimes don't react to even psychiatric drugs, that or other things. There's a lot of unknowns. People don't. He does mention that there's like a lot of confusion about what works and what doesn't, and unfortunately the brain is very complex. Our systems our bodies are very complex. The medical there's still a lot of questions, many more questions than answers when it comes to how the brain works, and the CNS and all of those things, and we learn every day new things. There's you don't, again, it's a promise that it seems like a marketing tactic, that promising you something that they can't actually promise. They can say that a better thing to say is that you'll have a greater chance to, which is fine, and it's a good thing to say, you'll have a much greater chance to find yourself in a place where you enjoy your life again, that you have a better physical health and mental health. Fine, but it's not, when you get off the drugs, you still have you might still have the problems that you had before. So, that's not how you do it.
So now I want to quickly ask you if you relate to any of these things. You've got weight gain from medications that's eating away at your self-confidence. You've got sexual side effects that have eroded your ability to enjoy a core human experience.
That happens, yeah.
You've got emotional numbness from medications, and you feel like they're leaving you disconnected from life, whether it's your passions, your family, your children.
And for sure.
You've got brain fog and memory effects that are just making you feel less capable than you know you are. Maybe you've been wondering whether your medications have stopped working because despite taking them for years and taking higher doses, things in your life just aren't getting better. And you've started to really want to come off medications, but you just can't find any help doing this. Maybe you've even started to blame yourself for starting meds in the first place or not coming off them sooner, and you're starting to get worried that you might actually never get off medications. If you're feeling these things, I want you to know that it's not your fault. Because the real problem is traditional tapering protocols, yes, that's right, the ones that you have relied on to try and come off medications before, they simply don't work. And the fact is, they frequently make things worse.
Let's talk about this for a second. What are, again, he's using a very vague term, traditional tapering protocols. He probably relates to, and he's going to talk about it later, to the the tapering protocols that some government agencies put out, and they still are online. It's really very annoying, because at least, for example, when I did a search before, it's still the first, when you Google tapering from something, from benzos or from SSRI or from something else, the first results are usually like really bad, exactly what he's talking about, like going too fast and doing like linear taper. But I would say that right now, like, to talk about traditional, there's also a traditional, the traditional tapering protocols are from the Ashton Manual, and which is traditional. It's like it's from the 90s and the early 2000s, and it's still, people still use it. And now there's Mark Horowitz's book, which also uses a system that I actually have a lot of criticism for, because it's not doing, he's not using a scale. Well, I'll do a video about his book as well. It's a very important book, but it also has a lot of shortfalls, unfortunately. And in the word traditional might not be the right word to use. Maybe official.
Here's why I say that. I say that because the brain is always seeking homeostasis, and whenever we take a psychiatric medication, we disrupt the fine equilibrium of neurochemicals in our brain. And when we do that, the brain undergoes all of these changes to adapt to that medication so it can function in the way it was designed to. Now, this is a really overwhelming slide. Please don't read it. I don't want you to get, overwhelmed by it.
Then why do you put it on? Please don't read it. It's like saying please don't think about a blue elephant. Can you stop thinking about a blue elephant right now? Look what it says. First of all, you don't understand anything from here, and then you see all sorts of things like psychosis, anxiety, aggression, and depression. I don't even.
But it's just to make the point that our neurochemicals, just like serotonin, operate all throughout the body. We have a tendency to try and think that they just are involved in our mood, but the truth is they do many things. They regulate how our heart functions, how our digestive system functions, what our platelets and our clotting factors do. And the truth is our body does not like that at all. And so when we take these drugs for our mood, these systems in our body send signals back up to the brain, telling the brain to change its structure and to adapt so that these systems aren't thrown out of whack. This is an image showing a functional image of the brain, essentially, in someone that's taking a placebo and someone that's taking an SSRI. As you can see from these heat maps, there are substantial changes in the brain when you take antidepressant medication or any other psychiatric medication for that effect.
I don't even understand what it shows. It's like the heat, or what? Networks centrally between placebo. Okay, so now I understand what he's saying, but yeah.
Effect. And over time, because of these changes and the body fighting against them, the brain actually has to change its structure to stay in balance. And that's why we've got studies out there that show that with some psychiatric medications, for instance, this study is looking at antipsychotics, you can actually see the structural changes that develop over time to compensate for that drug being in your system. And so here's what happens when people come off medications. You see, they try and taper. Well, when they work with a doctor, sometimes the doctor tries to taper them much too quickly. And when you remove a drug that your brain has spent years growing around, and you remove it at a pace that's faster than the body and the brain's ability to readapt to that removal of the drug, you essentially throw off the whole equilibrium in the brain. And that leads to really bad symptoms because you've disrupted the brain's neurochemical balance. And those symptoms are withdrawal symptoms. These are the brain zap.
I didn't, by the way, those weird cuts are not something that I edited. It's just part of the video.
These are the dizziness, this is the severe anxiety and the insomnia. And I want you just to imagine.
The first time when I saw the video and I saw this image, I was literally cursing him. This is a horrible image to show to anybody who's taking drugs, psychiatric drugs, and having withdrawal symptoms. Or even before. This is, wow, what a horrible image. His analogies are, like I said, are very scary, and that's definitely I want to assure everyone who's watching this video that this is not your brain. If you're taking, when you come off the drugs, or this may be. Yeah, just the use of this image is absolutely horrible.
Something. Imagine you went into
your brain doesn't it's not some flimsy.
A building, and you all of a sudden ripped out all of the foundational beams in that building all at once. You didn't put up any bracing or anything like that. You just sort of yanked it out. What do you think would happen to that building?
You'll die.
Right. The building would collapse. And that's exactly what happens to the brain when it has grown around psychiatric medications for years. Or maybe even, 3 months, 6 months.
I want to say something to all the people that are watching this video. Even people that call Turkey and are very damaged. One of the reasons why everyone's talking about the opioid crisis, but they don't talk about the benzo crisis or the SSRI crisis. First of all, they do, but not to the same level. And the reason is because hundreds of thousands of people die every year from opioids, while from benzos, Unfortunately, most of the deaths are because of self-harm, because of people trying to unalive themselves because of their severe withdrawal symptoms, and because I'm not sure if I see a lot of people censor themselves on YouTube, but basically unaliving an ideation is a big problem. I had that too, but it's rare that people. I've never heard of anyone who died from benzo withdrawal. Let's just say that. People survive it and they end up telling the tale to their grandchildren. So please, yeah, that's a really bad image.
Once you just yank that drug out of there, the system the system collapses. And that's exactly what people are experiencing out there. For instance, we've got studies out there that show that 54% of people are rating their withdrawal symptoms as severe when they're getting tapered off.
I haven't looked at this study. Maybe I should look. I mean, it doesn't have any link or anything for it. I need to Google. But I'm just going to have a quick look. They use various strategies to cope with, I don't see where it says... Yeah, he hides it under this thing. At least 9 months, completed a web-based survey about experience and strategy, I suppose during discontinuation. But how did they actually discontinue? They don't see if well, let's see if he says anything about it. But it could be cold turkey as well. It's hard to judge something where you don't have all the information.
In traditional settings with doctors, we've also got some studies out there that show that sometimes these severe withdrawal symptoms, they're not that benign. And in fact, many people are developing protracted withdrawal injury where their symptoms are lasting for around 3 years, even after they come off. And that is completely preventable. And I'm going to show you more about that later on.
Protracted is he talks about it later, and also makes protracted withdrawal syndrome bigger than what, I think, in my opinion, my humble opinion, a bit he creates a lot of fear that people get it willy-nilly, and it's very rare. It definitely happens more with people that cold turkey, and you can minimize it, but most people don't last. It doesn't last years. It's not the majority.
But I want to share something with you. There is some good news, because there is a safe way to get off medications. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. That is our proprietary process. This is the process that we've used to help hundreds of our patients just like Ginny here, who was stuck taking Xanax. She had tried hundreds of times to come off, and she just wasn't.
Hundreds of times, mate. Again, you really need to be careful what you're saying. Hundreds of times. Someone tried hundreds of times to stop Xanax. It's not hundreds of times.
We were able to use
it. If someone takes Xanax for 10 years and it's hundreds of times, that means that every week he tries to stop it. And I mean, 100 time would be for in a year every 3 days or every 3.5 days, and over like 10 years it will be every week.
Use this process
not every week, but maybe every month. Let's just do this calculation. Yeah, every month.
Safely wean her off her medications and get her off once and for all. This also helped our patient Sarah, who was taking Lexapro, Lamictal, and Klonopin, and she had been left high and dry by her doctor after they failed the taper. The doctor told her it was due to her underlying condition, and over the course of 2 years, we were able to safely get her off all of her medications. And so with this protocol, you're going to have a step-by-step process that you can follow, so you never have to worry about whether you're tapering in the right or the wrong way. It's going to get you off your medications in the fastest and safest way, so you don't need to stay on them any longer than you need to. You're going to have the best chance of coming off without ending up like one of those worst-case scenarios that you've read about online. And the best part is that this is going to work even if you take multiple psychiatric meds or if you've been on your medications for decades. And you see, the only reason I can share all of this is that I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to psychiatric drug tapering. So, hi, I'm Dr. Josef Witt-Doerring, and I'm best known for helping patients safely come off their psychiatric medications. I did medical school at the University of Queensland, Australia. I did psychiatric residency at Baylor College of Medicine. I did a fellowship in psychiatric drug development, working for Janssen Pharmaceuticals and Drexel. I worked at the FDA in the Division of Psychiatry. I'm board certified. I've served as a forensic expert on multiple cases of psychiatric malpractice related to drug side effects, and I sit on the board of several non-profits.
He sounds so reliable with all of this information behind him and like all of this background. It's amazing. Then why are you saying things that sound like, why did you go to the dark side of marketing and use big words that don't have anything behind them, like saying hundreds of thousands and saying just making up numbers? Give if they do a research and say, yeah, this is the number of people that I think that suffer, and this is all sorts of things like that. But yeah,
dedicated to psychiatric drug tapering. And even though I'm now a sought-after expert when it comes to safe tapering of psychiatric medications, I want you to know that it was not always this way for me. You see, I entered residency in 2014, and I was really interested to delve into the depths of human psychology and understand all of the social reasons that were leading to mental illness, and to help people and maybe judiciously use medications sometimes. But what I found was that the field had become just about dispensing medications.
The problem is that people, I agree. My mom has a GP friend who's using her for. My mom is a psychiatrist, and she's not working anymore in Australia. That's the ironic thing, is that she can't actually get a license here unless she does her another psychiatric residency. And she's 70 years old, and she's have like 40 years of experience as a psychiatrist. That doctor complained to her that people. Other psychiatrists in Australia and doctors prescribe crazy amounts of and doses of psychiatric drugs. I know from personal experience that if you go to a GP here in Australia, because to see a psychiatrist, that's the ironic thing about it. She can't work here while there's like a huge shortage of psychiatrists, and when you need a psychiatrist, it takes sometimes 6 months to see one, or a year. And obviously, after 6 months or a year, that's not helpful for someone who has an acute reason that he needs to see a psychiatrist straight away. And then they have an hour to see you and decide what to do with you. A lot of them, like you said, don't know much, and they just give pills. And if you go to a GP, they'll just immediately give you an SSRI. And the psychiatrist that I saw here actually gaslighted me when I was in withdrawal and tried to put me with tapered. I'll talk about it later because he talks about that as well. But very, very easy and give. They very easily give things that they shouldn't give.
We were over-prescribing like crazy and hardly really even getting to know our patients. And something about that really didn't sit right with me. And at one point, I even contemplated quitting. I simply could not understand how we could be giving out medication so easily without helping people with the root causes of their problems. And really, quitting seemed like the easy way out, but thankfully, I came across some great professors who really guided me to develop my understanding about overprescribing and side effects in a more scientific way. And as I delved into this research, I realized that a lot of these medications, they simply don't work that well long-term for people. And on top of that, there are a lot of horrific side effects that weren't really being acknowledged by the medical community. Patients weren't being supported through them, and really they were just being ignored. And the consequences of this was that a lot of patients were left on medications that weren't really helping them. Maybe they were actually being harmed by them, and this wasn't.
Not all the psychiatrists are like that. My mom is an example of someone who was very against me starting psychiatric drugs because she knows about the side effects. People, like her patients, tell her. She was a child and adolescent psychiatrist, so she dealt with children, and she obviously was doing all she can not to give them chemicals basically. So she would give them stabilium. She would give them like a health, like a dietary supplements and things of that sort, omega-3, lots of stuff that can help. That doesn't have to be, but they know. People, the doctors know. They just sometimes they just feel that, I assume, that that's all they know. They're not like my mom, who was like a holistic therapist and was using naturotherapy and other disciplines to help people as well. But I think that a lot of psychiatrists just stay in their lane and they just like, this is what we know.
Really being acknowledged at all by the doctors. And then the hardest part about this as well was we would be telling patients that it was actually fairly easy to get off these medications. And when I looked into the research around that, I realized that it was horrendously misleading. In fact, a lot of the studies that my colleagues were referring to when they would tell patients that they could get off these medications in a couple of weeks were hopelessly outdated. They had been outdated for 15.
He talks about, he's going to say that the studies were only for 3 months, but he talked about it also with, there is on his channel, like sort of like a discussion with Dr. Mark Horowitz as well, and they talk for like 2 hours. I listened to all of this because it's very interesting. And they said that one of the things that they said was that those studies were actually sponsored by the drug companies, which is and that's how the doctors basically the drug companies recommend the drugs to the psychiatrists. And I can tell you from my childhood that I remember my mom's clinic in Israel was in our house, and we would get people coming from the drug companies to give her free samples and talk about those drugs. Very non-ethical way of conducting business in the medical field, in my opinion.
Years, and they were only based on studies that lasted about 3 months. And sure, if you're on a psychiatric medication for 3 months,
just to make sure that you understand, my mom wasn't influenced by them. She actually used to laugh about it, how they're trying to market their stuff to her, give her like free pens and all of this shit. But she knew.
You're going to be able to come off it in a couple of weeks because your brain really hasn't adapted to it that much. But nowadays, where the median duration of use, at least for antidepressants in the US, is over 2 years, that data doesn't make sense at all. 2 years on a medication is so much more than a couple of months. And so the studies that these doctors were using...
I think it's actually longer. I saw a study on that, and they compared the UK and the US. That's why I mentioned... I don't remember exactly the numbers, but it was more than 2 years.
To tell people about how easy it was to come off medications, they were simply flawed. And I realized we were failing our patients because people would be coming in with medications that weren't really working for them, and they were actually causing side effects. And when I would see my colleagues and my supervisors try and taper them, and their tapers would fail, they would just tell them that it's probably due to your underlying illness because they expected them to be fine in a couple of weeks. And then the patient walked away feeling like they probably had to be on the medication for the rest of their life. What a failure.
I was also told that by my doctor, now that when I came off the benzodiazepines, he was really happy. He said he thought it would take me years to taper. He didn't know how to taper me, and he didn't know how, he thought at the beginning also that it can be very, very fast. But then I asked them to call a line that, that explained to him how it works. And he said, they said it can take you longer, but he wanted to do like a linear taper with me, just a very long one. And he did say to me that with the paroxetine, I'll probably have to be with it on this for a very long period. He doesn't think that I should quit it. I'm not going to do it anyway, because I'm only 13 weeks off the benzodiazepines, and it's important to have a good break between tapers. But and it does at the moment, at least. I'm very, very stable. So why ruin it? Because I'm doing better than I did before this all started. So,
and at this point, I'd pretty much had enough. And that's when I started wanting to be very outspoken about what was happening with psychiatric drug tapering and the problems. And so I started writing articles just like this one here on the online withdrawal communities, and this made it to the front page of the Psychiatric Times. And I kept at it, and I kept on studying, and I kept on wanting to learn everything I could about side effects and drug tapering. So I did fellowships in pharmaceutical companies. I also went to the FDA and worked in the division of psychiatry. And I also worked for several years as the lead safety officer in a pharmaceutical company, so I could learn everything about drug side effects. And it was by going through all of these experiences that I learned why most tapering protocols fail. As I shared before, that they're totally out of date, and they pretty much ignore evidence that shows that it needs to be done slower. And after going through all of this, I decided I really needed to help this population, and that's when I developed a world's first practice dedicated to helping patients safely come off their psychiatric medications in the correct way so they could get free once and for all if that's what they truly desire.
I don't like, again, the use of world first. You don't know if you're world first. This is something that you can say, that the Coca-Cola can say about a new drink or something. I don't know, or that it's bad marketing, mate. Don't use world first. You don't know if you're world first. It's not a competition anyway.
And by doing this, I figured out a better way to taper people off psychiatric meds, and the results, frankly, they've been amazing. We've helped hundreds of our patients over the last several years get off their medications. And I want to share with you that my patients, the ones that we've been helping, these aren't the lucky few. In fact, this could be anyone. In fact, this could be you if this was something that you truly...
I actually saw some of those. They do talk very candidly about the fact that they're not fully healed. Like one of them said that, I'm still having withdrawal symptoms when I finish the taper and stuff like that. So I don't think he's trying to hide anything. But again, I'm like, that's also like my hundreds of clients are not the lucky few. It's, you're going to have people that don't react well. And that's why I don't like this promises that he makes.
Desired. And so I just want to ask you to imagine, how good would it be when you no longer have to worry about picking up refills from the pharmacy? And you can stop asking yourself whether you're developing dementia because you've got brain fog or forgetfulness from these medications. And when that drug-induced weight gain that you've been suffering with and that seems totally resistant to exercise or even changing your diet, when that finally drops off.
There are researchers that show that benzodiazepines, from my understanding, that benzodiazepines can cause dementia in people that are older, over 65. Definitely a reason not to take benzos. I'm not sure about the other stuff. I'm not going to say something that I don't know if it's true or false, but I don't think he should use the word, again, like he's using the worst case scenarios that can really, that what will make people so fearful that they'll use this little button that suddenly join this thing and says, let's talk. And, I won't press it yet because I want to see the rest of it. But isn't that like, classic, only now, go and it is so long already. You see, like it's taking a long time. He didn't even start the 3-step method, and it's like, and at some point you're like, you know what? I want to just talk to him directly. It's a free call.
And how good is it going to be when you can stop faking it during intimacy with your partner and really enjoy that experience for what it is? And imagine what life is going to look like when you're finally free of the emotional blunting that has held you back from connecting with others in a more authentic way, whether it's with your relationship, whether it's with your friends or with your children. And imagine also how good it's going to feel when you're no longer worried about the long-term health impacts of being on medications. And finally, just imagine how good it's going to feel when you've fully gotten off your medications and you have confidence in yourself that you can get by without relying on any medications to regulate your mood, your anxiety, or your sleep. So as I mentioned previously, traditional tapering protocols don't work and they frequently make things worse. I want to share with you 3 discoveries that I've made about tapering medications over the last several years of helping patients do this. And so the first one is that doctors simply have not been trained to taper patients safely off their medications.
My mom was never trained. She's a psychiatrist, but she studied in the 70s. But I do know that, yeah, he's completely right about that.
And when I looked at this review of all of the tapering protocols that are out there, it confirmed what I had known for a while, and that is that these protocols are hopelessly out of date, sometimes about 15 years out of date, and they simply ignore several types of studies and surveys out there that have shown that patients need to be tapered at a much slower rate, especially when they've been on medications for several years. And so what I see when patients go to doctors who are not experts in tapering is that they are tapered far too quickly. These doctors think they can do it in a couple of months, far too quick if you've been on it for years. And oftentimes they end up with really bad withdrawal symptoms, which are misdiagnosed as the underlying condition. And sometimes these doctors, when these patients come off these medications and they misdiagnose the withdrawal because they're not expecting it, they start giving them new medications to manage those symptoms.
The lady that saved my life, basically, because she got me to even start looking at CBD oil. She contacted me. I was looking for people in my area and to basically be benzo buddies. And she contacted me, and she said she was on 7 medications, that she tapered them all very quickly, using the right CBD oil. And she's not well because she has a lot of a lot of issues, that the reasons why she took that, like she complex post-trauma and things of that sort. It's not easy, but she's off those drugs that really ruined her life. And yeah, and that's how it happened. Like she got some drug from one doctor, and then and then more and more and more and more, and one drug to fix the problems the other drug makes, and all sorts of stuff. And then basically it's like 7 medications.
Which is kind of crazy considering that they came to them in the first place trying to come off, and they walk away with more meds. And so I'm going to repeat here. This results in essentially unnecessary suffering from withdrawal, people thinking that they need to be on the meds for the rest of their life because the doctor kind of gaslights them a little bit and says it's their underlying condition, even though it's withdrawal. They needlessly get started on meds they don't need, but ultimately it's a waste of our most valuable resource, and that's essentially time. This is going to waste your time, and so it's going to cost you money. And by no surprise to me, most people, after they go to these doctors and they have a terrible experience, they try and do it on their own. And that brings me to my second discovery, and that is, don't be your own doctor. Because the truth is, tapering medications is really complicated. There are so many questions that come up. For instance, what do I do if I'm on multiple meds? Which ones do I start first? Do I taper them all at the same pace, or do I do different paces for different?
The answers to those questions, mostly in the groups. The multiple medications, you just start the common knowledge. Again, I'm not a doctor, I have all of that, but the common knowledge is that you start with like, for example, the drug that you think that causes the biggest problem, and usually it's benzos if you're on those drugs, because also benzo is the hardest one to taper. You can decide to start with with the other one. The most important thing is never taper 2 at a time or 3 at a time. And I see a lot of benzo friends actually still doing it because they just want to get off everything. So why taper 1 when you can taper 2 and and finish with it? Never do that. You just do one by one, and I don't think that's worth. When I say so, your health worth all the money in the world, but there are generic answers, and but he's right in a way, because in a perfect world, your doctor would know what to tell you when you ask him this question, and it will be the right answer, and you'll be able to talk to him every week, especially in a place like in Australia, where a lot of the doctors are. Not all of them, unfortunately, now, but are about billing, so you don't actually pay to see them, or even if they take a certain payment, there is like a ceiling. It's called like I don't remember the name of it, but basically Medicare, the public system. There is a ceiling of how much you pay every year for seeing doctors or things like that. So at some point, if you saw a psychiatrist every day, I think, what is their ceiling? Let's find out. Medicare ceiling. Safety nets, thresholds, let's find out. So your out-of-pocket amount for calendar year, 80% out of the basically, I think that's the most you pay. So if you see a psychiatrist multiple times a year, and he's, that's the most you'll pay. If I'm wrong, then please, but I'm pretty sure, because I had a friend that was in this in this situation, and she would see her psychiatrist pretty often, and the cost was very minimal because she reached the threshold, and basically they covered most of the amount. Let's go back to this.
Different meds. Do I taper one at a time or multiple at a time? Which do I start with? Why? What happens if I get worse? Do I hold? Do I speed up? Do I slow down?
The answers to this is also pretty known. If symptoms pop up, you hold, and you wait until you stabilize, and then you just go a little bit slower. Either probably the best way is to actually cut smaller amounts, and keep the pace the same. But what I do in my sheet is allow people to basically continue the taper when they feel that they can. So or take do a smaller reduction.
Should I do?
And you can, by the way, if you have really severe symptoms, with benzos at least, you can, because of the way that I do, I recommend people to do it like not every 14 days, but less than that. You can basically know, like if you did usually a few days after, if you did too much of a cut, if in the longer acting benzos like diazepam and clonazepam, it's usually between 3 and 7 days after you cut, you feel it. Sometimes it's even, for some people it's immediate, and sometimes it changes too. But you'll know, and if it's so unbearable for you that that you have to do something, I would suggest, from my perspective, that you take some things that calm you down a little bit, like the things that I talk about in my supplements video. And if you really have to updose, then updose, because and it's not it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing, you don't have to feel like a failure. It's something that people do. People will tell you to stay the course, but those people don't go through what you're going through. So you don't be a hero. If you feel that it's too much, updose a little bit. It will still take a few days to clear. That's the problem. That's the cruel thing about it, is that with the long-acting ones, sometimes even if you outdose, it would still take some time to get better, and for some people it won't help as well. That's the cruel thing about this drug. But most of the time, I think people say that they stabilize, and then they just go slower.
And also, how fast should I go? Is it 30%, 10%, 5%, or even 1% a month? Because the truth is, there's no one pace that works for everyone. And that's what happens a lot of the time, where people go online and they go to online forums. Sometimes they get generic tapering advice that's really not suited to them and their individual circumstances. This leads to a lot of risk, confusion, and uncertainty.
And what happens if you go, if like the lady that I'm talking to goes to like a real someone who's taking money for advice, a doctor, a psychiatrist that is supposed to be benzo-wise, and they give them basically a linear taper. And then she says, "Oh my God, everyone's giving me different. I'm so confused." It's a problem, and that's why I'm like, you basically you need to do a hyperbolic taper. That by hyperbolic is like a certain percentage from the previous dose, not from the beginning of the taper. And basically that's the way that all the research shows that you should do it. And just listen to your body basically, and change the speed and the amount according to how you feel.
About how to taper. And the truth is that successful drug tapering, it really requires years of experience, expert knowledge in psychopharmacology, and the ability to diagnose many of the problems that come up during a drug taper.
Oh my God, this another analogy is going to call it an analogy, but I agree that the more experience you have, the better you're going to be as a taper coach. I'm not. I have experience that goes from what I did and what I studied, but I did study a lot. Like during this year and a half, I was basically just on the computer every day for 10 to 12 hours. I couldn't do anything else. I didn't enjoy anything, and I would, if I see a TV show, I would get anxiety. So I would just study and learn and talk to people and learn what's best for me. And the formulas helped. I got a lot of bad advice, a good advice, but I was still have. Luckily, I still had my brain and my gut feeling to know what's And I did mistakes, and I've learned from them. And I've learned from other people that used coaches or didn't use coaches. I did a lot of research. So yeah, of course. But let's talk about this image in a second.
And I want to ask you this. You wouldn't expect a surgeon to go into surgery after reading some online blogs, having never really done it before.
Mate, it's not the same. To do a surgery and not kill the patient, you need to go to medical school, be top of your class, then do a residency, learn, do a lot more studying to be and then you basically people's life depend on you. Which is not to say that benzo coaches don't, have this very strong, influence on the person that they're helping. Of course they do, but people don't die from benzo withdrawals usually, and it's just a matter of doing the best you can. I don't like his analogies; they're so severe and extreme. It's not a surgery, and this doctor, this AI doctor, that looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Oh my God, what a bad image.
And expect that surgery to be a success. So why are we doing this with psychiatric medications, expecting that we can just go online and read something and then untangle multiple medications that have entwined themselves in our brain tissue and expect that to be successful? It's fraught with risk. And this brings me to my third discovery. It is so important to get tapering done right the first time through if you have a chance, and if not the first time, get it done correctly as soon as possible. And so here's Humpty Dumpty again. And so what does he have to do with safe tapering? Well, it turns out he's a pretty good metaphor for why it's important to get it done right the first time through. Because if you're not aware of this popular children's story, when Humpty Dumpty breaks, when he falls off the wall, you really can't put him back together again. And that's the risk, and that's a similar risk with drug tapering. If you taper,
yes, protective withdrawal. Well, he's going to say that it's like people still heal
incorrectly, and you develop a condition called protracted withdrawal. It's not something that goes away. And so let's talk about that in more.
In a second, he's going to say that time heals it.
Detail. What is protracted withdrawal? Well,
does not go away. The only
it's an uncommon problem that happens when people taper too quickly off their medications. And the truth is, some people come off their medications really quickly, they cold turkey them, and they're absolutely fine. But for unknown reasons, there is a growing proportion of people who, when they do this, they actually develop a form of brain injury. And they develop symptoms that simply do not go away even when they restart the drugs. These are problems like neuropathy, burning hands, burning feet, numbness, ringing in their ears, light sensitivity. And the worst part about this is something that only goes away with time. And sometimes.
Then why do you say it does not go away?
Sometimes this can last for several years. It is not something that you want to happen to you. It can be a life-changing problem, and it needs to be avoided at all possible costs. And the thing is, most doctors don't know about this, and that's because it's only recently been acknowledged.
Protective withdrawal. Let's just read it for a second. Protective withdrawal syndrome associated with benzodiazepines characterized by anxiety, and tinnitus that persists beyond 4 to 6 weeks. That's not protracted withdrawal symptoms. That beyond 4 to 6 weeks is still in the acute withdrawals, which is like usually, and I'm talking about what people in the benzo community consider that. And that's not me talking. That's people that in the Benzo Information Coalition, and or people that he talks about, that he sits in there, supposedly sit in there like boards and stuff like that. Protracted withdrawal symptoms usually refers to beyond 18 months. So if you're 18 months after you stop taking the drug, you still have those side effects, those really bad side effects. That's called protracted withdrawal. So this definition, if that's what they put on it, it's also not exactly correct. It's also just not what people, benzo-wise people talk about.
By the medical community. For instance, here's the benzodiazepine labels. They were all updated in 2020 to warn about the risk of protracted withdrawal injury when you're coming off drugs like Xanax, Klonopin, diazepam. Most doctors still are not aware of it. And again, this is the antidepressant guidelines that have been updated in 2019 by the Royal College of Psychiatrists. And this was really the first time that doctors started to acknowledging protracted withdrawal problems coming off the antidepressants. But still, most doctors aren't aware of this. They are not aware of the risks of getting drug tapering wrong, exposing patients to severe withdrawal symptoms, and then just simply the consequences of that. And so, to reiterate...
he talks about antidepressant, and I admit that I don't... with antidepressant, I'm not as knowledgeable as with benzos, but with benzos, it's usually protracted withdrawal is considered to be between. In fact, in some of the groups on Facebook that are for protracted people, the first thing that ask it is like, you'll only join if it's been 18 months. I don't know why. I don't agree with everything that's going on with some of the groups, but of course, but yeah.
Right, again, the most important thing that you can do to avoid protracted withdrawal injury is to make sure that when you're coming off the drugs, you're doing it with the least amount of withdrawal symptoms possible, because there is simply something about severe drug withdrawal symptoms that can be damaging to the brain, and you really want to avoid that. And so if you're aware of benzo buddies or surviving antidepressants, some of you may not be, but essentially these are online forums, and there are hundreds of thousands of people on there.
I don't know about surviving antidepressants, but I don't think benzo buddies has hundreds of thousands. That's what I mentioned before. This is an old like old school, like kind of like a forum, internet forum. It existed before Facebook. People prefer, I would imagine, to use Facebook unless they want to be completely anonymous. But then they can just use a fake account, like I did in some of those groups. But with benzo buddies, you can ask them, but I don't think it's hundreds of thousands of active people. There's 12,000 people, like I said, in the biggest benzo group, and out of them, a few tens of them are actually participating, consistently in the group, and very few actually talk in the chats and things like that. So. It doesn't mean that there's not millions of people suffering in the world, or tens of millions or hundreds of millions, but it's not a good thing to say hundreds of thousands when you do a video like that and you don't know the number, and you're a doctor and you said that you've been on all those groups and you have high credentials and all of that. Then at least be accurate about those things.
Who have protracted withdrawal injury, and they are struggling to come off their medications. And if you can avoid this happening to you, man, you really should, because it is simply that serious of a condition. And so what I'm going to tell you to do is, don't take this approach to drug tapering. This is what I call the hope and pray approach, where you say, I'm just going to cold turkey off, I'll probably be okay. Or I'm just going to follow what my doctor's saying. Yeah, sure, I've got bad withdrawal symptoms, but it'll be all right. Don't do that, because when Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall, you can't put him back together again. You need to get tapering done right the first time through.
Stop using the Humpty Dumpty analogy. You get injured, maybe, and then you heal again.
Serious stuff.
Okay.
And so remember this, I showed you my pathway off medications before. I want to go into it. I want to show you what's part of this and why there's a better way off these medications. So this is called the taper clinic protocol. And step one is to diagnose. And so what do we do in this step? Well, we need to plan the start of your taper. And there's multiple things that are going to dictate what the first step is. If you're having withdrawal problems or interdose withdrawal or anything like that, we're going to treat your withdrawal first before we begin tapering you, because Like I said, we don't want you going into protracted withdrawal if we can avoid that. Next, we're going to look at whether you're having side effects to drugs, whether you've been on a drug just for a short period of time and it's easy to remove, whether we need to remove certain drugs in a certain order to make it easier for your taper overall. For instance, like we're going to remove stimulants before we remove sedatives. That's one of the core rules of doing this correctly. And we're also going to assess all of the drugs to make sure that we're removing the more dangerous drugs first. For instance, if you're on some benign drugs, but you're also on an antipsychotic, we're probably going to target that one first because the side effects are just that much worse in the long term. And so why do you want to have this diagnosis session?
See, I'm also learning here. This is good. I like that finally I learned something from this. And you know, he's actually sharing wisdom. That's important because, like I said, his fees are insane. So at least he does that here.
And at the start, well, because it matters how you begin your journey off meds. And when you do it correctly, people feel better immediately. They taper with fewer side effects. It speeds up their ability to get off the drugs, and it reduces their exposure to serious risks. It is an essential step in getting a drug taper started correctly. Now, the second step in drug tapering is to execute. And this is when we're going to start to talk about how to begin your taper. And the first thing you need to decide is your speed. And there's several factors that are going to influence your speed. You need to look at the severity of the side effects that you may be experiencing now from your drugs. If they're more severe, you may move faster. If you're going to look at the time on the drug. If you haven't been on the drug for a long time, sometimes you can move quicker. You're going to look at the type of drug. Maybe if you're trying to taper a stimulant, you can move a lot faster than trying to come off a benzodiazepine or an antidepressant. You also need to look at your sensitivity to withdrawal in the past. If you're more sensitive, you may move slower. And all of these factors are going to dictate how quickly you remove that medication. And finally, once you have your speed in place, you need to pick the method. And there's several methods out there.
Taper.
Sure, you can taper with tablets and a razor. You could get tablets, you can dissolve them in a jar of water. You can get compounded capsules. You can get pre-made pharmaceutical liquids from your CVS or Walgreens. You can go to a compounding...
The reason why I just thank God is because Mark Horowitz, I'm going to do a video about it, like I said, but in his book, he doesn't even have any mention. There's 2 mentions of jewelers scales that are used for, like a milligram scale that is used for cutting and tablets and maybe doing a powder and things like that, which is the easiest way to do it and the most accurate in my opinion. Maybe compounded liquids could be more accurate, but definitely not water taper. And yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, it's such an important book, but he actually doesn't mention, he creates tables of like tapering for people that are using pretty numbers because, he just doesn't have a scale. So literally have to cut pills like, by the eye, like, to halves and quarters and stuff. So I'm literally, it's very sad, but I'm basically like the people that are most knowledgeable, supposed to be most knowledgeable about it, and cutting dry taper is the most popular and the best way. Like, most people use that method to come off, in the groups and in the benzo bodies and all of that. And in BIC and all of those websites, that's how you do it. And he didn't mention it in the page. So I'm just happy that this is here.
Pharmacy, where you make precision liquids with specific ratios that help you taper off, doing micro tapers. You can count beads out of a capsule. There's all of these different methods. And the trick is you really want to pick the method that's best suited to what you're trying to do. And that's going to allow you to do several things. Well, when you pick the right method for the right speed and the right drug, you're going to taper in a way that is much more effortless. For instance, shaving down tablets with a razor, that takes a lot of time. If you can taper with a liquid and a syringe, that's going to save you hundreds of hours.
It doesn't take a long time if you do it with a good scale, and like you could watch my video about dry tapering, what I'm using, and they're very cheap, and you basically it takes about. It used to take me an hour to do to be very OCD about the amounts, and literally milligrams here and there and things like that. And it's not really necessary with some drugs like diazepam, because they're already quite big. It's maybe more with clonazepam and drugs that the pills are smaller, and the milligram amount is tiny, and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it took me an hour every week, and I would imagine, and the water, the liquid taper that I did was actually much more harder and more stressful, for reasons I'll mention in a video that I'll compare both of them. But I definitely think that I actually found out when I did the dry tapering one, that I always thought of like crushing the pills and then using like a little spoon to put on the scale and stuff like that. It actually ended up being easier than cutting the pills. I didn't think it would be, and it did. So yeah.
As you do this over the course of a year. And so getting this part right is going to make this easier. You're going to taper in a less time-consuming way. It's going to be a smaller part of your daily routine. If you pick the right tapering method, sometimes you can reduce the drug in very small increments, and that allows you to bust through plateaus. For instance, if you're just snapping tablets in half, you might get to a point where you can't go any further because the withdrawal symptoms are too much. If you transitioned over to a liquid and did a gradual taper, at that point you could use the precision of liquids to get through that plateau and finish.
The water taper, precision of liquids, is maybe when you do like a liquid compound, like a pharmacy makes the liquid for you, or in places where you can actually get a liquid form of the drug, which unfortunately in Australia, for clonazepam at least, it doesn't exist. If you can get it, that's really good. I agree that it would be more accurate, but the most accurate is not water tapering. Water tapering is very bad. You don't get those drugs are not meant to be soluble in water, so you basically get tiny bits and big bits, and it doesn't dissolve fully. And really, you should really crush the tablet before you put it in, and then you basically need to shake it. And so how do you shake it? You have to have like a container that's fully closed, and then when you finish shaking it, you need to open it and take with a syringe the water out, and do it in a way that it's actually like, it's not going to be homogeneous in the liquid. It would like within a few seconds, it's already like concentrating on the bottom of the vessel, and that's why also you do milk taper, because the fat's supposed to, like full fat milk taper, because the fat's supposed to be like intermediate agent that keeps that makes it soluble to an extent, and so but then you don't see what you're doing, and that's how I got a big setback. So do a dry taper if you can.
Finish your taper. But ultimately, choosing the right technique to do this is going to allow you to have a much smoother experience of these medications, and you're going to have fewer symptoms. And so let's now talk about the final step in the taper clinic protocol, and that is to adapt. And I want to stress this point here. The core skill that everyone needs to learn when they're coming off their medications is how your body is responding to dose changes. This is a skill that you must master, because it is going to dictate how quickly you can come off. And we've found over time that the best way to teach someone this, to shortcut them to figuring this out, is by making them do a diary. And so we make our patients do a diary where we learn what their baseline is and how their baseline changes as they change the doses of their medications over time. And we monitor these on a weekly basis, and we give our patients feedback. And by doing this, they start to create this connection between their body and what's happening with the medications, and they have so much more confidence in their taper. And so when you do this and you develop this skill, you have objective certainty about what you're going to do with your taper. You know when to hold, you know when to speed up, you know when to slow down, because the data is there. You're less anxious about your taper, you're more confident about the steps that you're making, and ultimately all of this essentially means you're going to taper off your medications faster and with fewer symptoms. And so there you have it. That is the taper clinic protocol. This is the way we've managed to get hundreds of our patients off their medications. Patients just like Amelia. So Amelia, she was a 48-year-old real estate agent. She'd been on Zoloft for 20 years, but gradually she had started to feel more emotionally flat and disconnected from her children and from her spouse. She'd failed a 6-week rapid taper with her doctor, and the doctor had told her that she needed to be on these medications for the rest of her life. We worked together, and over the course of 2 years, we were able to gradually take her off this medication. 2 years later, she's now experiencing a full range of her emotions again and is happier than ever. This worked on James. Now, James was a 40-year-old engineer, married, father of 3, and he'd been taking Klonopin for 8 years for insomnia. Over time, he started to feel like the medication was just turning on him. He started to feel more anxious. His sleep wasn't great. He was even having mood swings during the day. Now, he went to a detox center where they promised him they could get him.
Those detox centers need to be all the people that work there, and they tell people that they can taper off benzos in a few days, like basically literally detox them from the benzo, and then somehow like in 3 weeks stabilize them, usually sometimes with other medications that you need to taper, and basically ruin their life. Honestly, they need to be in jail.
Him off in 2 weeks, and he had horrendous withdrawal. In fact, he even developed some protracted withdrawal symptoms afterwards. He was at his wit's end. We managed to get him into the clinic, we diagnosed the protracted withdrawal, and we put him on a tapering plan that allowed us to remove the Klonopin without worsening his protracted withdrawal injury. Now, 18 months later, the protracted withdrawal injury has mostly resolved, and he's safely come off the Klonopin. This worked for Samantha. Samantha's a 28-year-old nurse. She'd been taking Zoloft and Seroquel for 5 years following a traumatic experience. Now, she had developed low self-esteem because she did not like the weight gain that was related to the Zoloft and the Seroquel. And she also wanted to start a family, and she wanted to do so without being on medications when she was pregnant. She tried to come off with her doctor, but they failed. The doctor told her that she had an underlying condition and she needed to be on the medications for the rest of her life. And this left her feeling really disheartened because she did not like the way that she looked. She really didn't want to be on meds when she was having kids. She came to us, and over the course of 18 months, we put her on a slow, gradual taper. We were able to get her off both the medications. Her weight loss, her weight gain from the meds went away, and she lost that weight. And she's now really excited to begin starting her family with her fiance. So I worked for David. He's a 32-year-old marketing executive. He'd been taking Zoloft for 5 years, and he had developed low self-esteem because he was having sexual dysfunction. He hated the fact that when he wanted to be intimate with his wife, there were all of these challenges that he was having, and it made him feel like less of a man. He had tried to come off, but had so much anxiety, dread, and terror when he was rapidly tapered. He had started to give up on coming off and was worried that this was just going to be it for him. This was going to be his sex life with his wife, and he hated that. We were able to work together. We taught him how to do a daily liquid microtaper. Over the course of 9 months, we were able to safely wean him off Zoloft, and his sexual functioning returned. And finally, this worked on Cliff. Now, Cliff was a 64-year-old property developer, been taking Klonopin for 10 years, also for sleep. But now he had started to notice that he was having some brain fog and some memory impairment. He just felt less capable than he knew he was. He was struggling at work, and he hated that. He tried to taper off with his doctor, but he developed insomnia and essentially thought that he would have to be on this medication for the rest of his life. We worked together. We did a 14-month gradual taper, and we were able to get him off the Klonopin. He's feeling just as...
Please don't think that it could be real people. I think that it would be more convincing. Those are all stories that are completely make sense, but it would be more convincing if those people would be recorded, which is what I saw with some even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. With I have a friend who was a hypnotherapist, and he was helping people quit cigarettes, and the testimonials were recorded videos of people telling their stories. That would be like he does in the himself. So I think it would have been better, just my opinion, if those videos, for example, were here rather than a picture that looks like a little bit either like an AI or just a picture from a website. for picture, like what do you call that? I forgot. I also have brain fog, mate. You know what I mean? Just like agency picture. So I would think that would make more sense. Not saying that what he's saying is untrue or anything like that. Definitely stories that make sense.
Sharp as he always was before, and he's actually looking forward to taking a 3-month trip with his wife when he retires. This was something he never was able to do before because he was always worried about losing medications, and his doctor had always given him some resistance about prescribing these meds for multiple months at a time. So he's now off these medications, and he's finally able to take long trips just knowing that his body is not dependent on a medication.
I haven't taken any vacation or drove anywhere further than 1 or 2 hours from my house, even less, like 1 hour, unfortunately. I can do it, but yeah, it's the one thing that I basically mourned my life when this started, because I knew that I'm dependent on this drug and I can't handle the anxiety was too much for me to even go anywhere, and obviously flying also with COVID and everything, and flus and all of those things can get you on a setback. So
you're here watching this presentation because you're committed to living a life off medications. You want to get away from all of the side effects and such. And if you're anything like me, you place a high value on your time, and you've probably enjoyed success in other areas of your life by focusing on the things that get you results. And you now know that traditional tapering protocols, they simply don't work. And I've shown you our taper clinic protocol, and I've shown you how it's helped hundreds of our patients safely come off their meds once and for all. And you've also seen that tapering with untrained or poorly experienced doctors who simply are not aware of the up-to-date research with tapering simply doesn't work. You've also seen that being your own doctor can be just as dangerous in tapering when you try and taper yourself without any experience. And you now know that the best way forward is by following a proven plan and getting experienced support in executing on that plan, because it's proven to help people just like you reach a life free from psychiatric medications. And I want you to know that if you really want to come off medications, you can do it, and that we can do this together. And just imagine, how great is it going to feel when you no longer have to deal with side effects that are holding you back, like weight gain, sexual dysfunction, or feeling numbed out, or how good it's going to feel when you finally regain control of your mind and you just know that you never need to rely on psychiatric medications to regulate your mood, your anxiety, or your sleep. And if you'd like me to help you do this, if you'd like me to help you achieve this, I would be delighted to do so, because there's one thing that I know for sure. And that is that doing this alone isn't easy. Here's why. It's cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to go through medical school and gather additional training to learn the skills to do this. I spent 10 years working with psychiatric patients, helping people.
Just this bit. So the fact that this training costs so much money, maybe explains why he's taking so much money, of course, but because he has debts, for his studies. But that by itself is insane. I think like anyone that wants to learn medicine should do it. In Israel, it's really hard. That's why we have, like in Israel, very good doctors, because but very few as well, because the faculties for medicine, you do 7 years of medicine. It's just straight 7 years, and you need to have the best psychometric results in the country, and the best results in your high school diplomas and things like that, and it's very hard to get there. But when you do, it doesn't cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. It costs you whatever it costs for a semester for anyone else. So I don't know how much it is now, but back in the day, it used to be like around the equivalent of $3,000 a year. And then because people couldn't do it, they had to go overseas to study, and then it was very expensive. But in countries like Germany, for example, if you can speak German, it's free if you're a EU citizen. And I think that's the model that should be. I don't know about medicine actually, but I know that in people that go to study in Germany, it used to be free, and so it's just this amount that he's talking about. I totally believe him, and it's horrible.
Taper off medications to develop a solution that actually works. What you've tried so far probably hasn't worked. That's why you're on this presentation. And what I know from doing this hundreds of times is that simply the devil is in the detail. There are small nuances that you need to get right to ensure that the taper happens in the fastest and in the safest way. And so here's what people do when they really want to be successful in something. You got to figure out what you want. You got to figure out why you want it. And then you need to ask who, not how. Let me explain. When you want to climb a mountain, there are multiple routes of ascent. There are several ways you can get there, but the truth is there is only one path that is going to be the safest and the easiest. And you have multiple choices in how you're going to embark on this journey. You could go to someone who doesn't have the training, or maybe they've done it once or twice.
Again, the problem with this picture is that it's a high, freezing mountain that looks like no human can actually climb without a lot of experience and literally mountain climbing, and no path looks good. Dude, it's not the path. This is all like fast tapered. It should be this with a nice path, dude. Yeah.
This is like the doctor who hasn't been trained, and they may say, I think this is the right way. Or you could try and do it yourself, and you can try and learn how to climb that mountain based on advice that you read online and without ever having gone up there before. Or you could find an experienced Sherpa that knows every single trail. They've walked every single trail up that mountain. They know how it's changed in the different seasons. They know how to pick a trail for the right kind of person because they've gone up there with so many people. And that's the reality when it comes to drug tapering as well. Going with someone who has the experience to show you the fastest and the safest rate up that mountain is going to be the best way to get this done correctly. So here's exactly how I can help you.
Good.
My team and I have set aside some time on our calendar to speak with you personally. On this discovery call, we're going to do 3 things. First, we're going to talk about why you want to come off your medications. Then we're going to talk about what you've tried and what's holding you back. Finally, we're going to create a plan for you to help you reach your goals of being medication-free. A plan just like the one that we made for Amelia, James, Samantha, David, and Cliff to help them finally get off their medications. And so if you want to free yourself from psychiatric medications, we will work with you and we will design a taper clinic protocol just for you.
TM. Don't dare use that term anywhere else.
We will tell you the best method for your taper. We will teach you exactly how to do that taper. We will prescribe all of your psychiatric medications, and we're going to guide you on each adjustment decision. On top of that, you won't need to worry about educating your doctor on how to taper you, getting force tapered off your meds or cut off, searching the ends of the internet for tapering.
Okay, so that's a big problem. That's the doctors just cut off people. I think those doctors, again, they need to be in jail. The solution is not to be now dependent on him and pay him $30,000 for a whole year, but it's or $40,000. And I don't know. Again, it's a speculation, but I would imagine that with a complex patient, it will be even more. And remember, those tapers can, like you saw in the example, can be 2 years. And so 2 years, do you have $70,000? I mean, $40,000 maybe, but most people don't have $70,000, especially when they're in withdrawal and they don't work or like they're on disability. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, and I don't like that he basically just ran through the fear thing of like the doctors cut you off and all of that, basically just saying, listen, I'm the only one who's going to prescribe you. Yeah, of course, he's a doctor, he's a psychiatrist, he can prescribe people, but yeah, he's right. It saves you that fear, but it's still $40,000, and it would be better if that doctor that you already have would talk to a hotline that explains how to do exactly what he's talking about, like they do in Australia, and at least understand how to do it properly.
Guidance, or constantly worrying about whether you're making the right decisions with your taper. So if you want to do this with a team of medical experts who have spent years helping the most complicated patients come off their psychiatric meds.
That's fair enough. Like I said, I think that what he described, people that are polydrugged, I mean, I know everything about benzo, but I don't know enough about, I'm reading Mark Horowitz's book. Like I said, it's a good book. Lots of information. I don't agree with certain things, like he's talking about the CBD oil being a problem, and he has literally half a paragraph for supplements, and in there he basically just says there's no evidence that it helps, and there is evidence that it helps. There's a literal study that they've done with CBD oil, one of the first ones, that showed that people that took it, half of them stopped taking medical, their sleeping pills within a month. So half of them didn't have any problems. The other half still took it, but it's a very high amount of people. So, I don't agree with everything in that book, but I do learn a lot from it. It's a really great book for in terms of research and things of that sort, and learning, certain ways, to very specific, drugs and all of that. But yeah.
Let's talk. But before we go any further, I need you to know that I can't help everyone.
But you promised.
And the last thing that I want to do.
You promised. You made a promise. You said that that I promise you that you won't have any severe side effects, and you'll be covered. And now you have a disclaimer at the end after I watch a whole hour, and now you say that you can't promise, that the promise was void because you can't help anybody. Of course you can't help anybody, mate. You're just a human, and people are complex. I'm not going to even repeat it. You know what I'm saying, right?
Is waste your time if you're not the type of person who I think is going to see results with my specific program.
Okay.
So this is not for you if you're already off all your medications. Again, this is a tapering program. You need to be on medications for this program to make sense for you. Next, this is
now there's a disclaimer. Very, very, very good disclaimer, but still
work for you if you have a serious mental illness.
You just wasted people's time for an hour. Now you tell me that it's wasting time? You gave them all this hope. You told them, I promise you. And now you're basically saying, if you have serious mental illness with no close supportive family friends, that's most of the people. People have mental illness. Again, serious is you need to say what? Bipolar, multiple suicidal, people trying to unalive themselves. I don't know what he means by serious mental illness, and no close supportive family friends. So what you're going to do? Those are the people that need you the most, dude. Those are the people that need someone to, they'll pay any money for someone to hold their hand. That's what I do for free sometimes. I just talk to people for 2 hours on, where they're crying. That's what that's what people really need, and that's what they're hoping to get, because most people don't understand them. Family members don't understand. Friends, close the connection. They don't talk to them anymore because it's too much. Guys, mate, you are having problems with addiction.
Things like unstable bipolar disorder, unstable depression, unstable schizophrenia, and you're in and out of the hospital. And if you're wanting to taper and you don't have any supportive family or friends who could help you through this is not going to be an appropriate program for you, because we're simply not set up to be able to help people with that level of mental illness. Next.
Wow. No close supportive family friends is not the same as serious mental illness. This should be 2 points, and the supportive family friends. If then why do people pay $40,000, mate? It's part of it. That's a problem I had with all the doctors. Part of being a psychiatrist. I'm just going to give an example from my mom. People call her at 10 p.m. and telling her that they're climbing the walls. and then she goes to her clinic and talks to them for half an hour. She doesn't even charge for it. Yes, she'll come back and she'll say, oh my God, the time, and I'm like, of course he's just a human, but but she will never not answer the phone call, because people found out their family, our family's number, and they because it's her last name, they called like the service, and they told them our family number, and they will call her. That happened quite a lot. Not every day, but it would happen once a month or so, that people would be in such an acute situation that they'll need help. And if people would call her, she would also have like months in advance lists of people that want to get an appointment. But it's children, and they wanted to, and they would call her, and there'll be like a real serious problem, and she would basically find places in her diary to see them. And the fact that all the people, including Peter Smith and other people, just told me like, we can't be crisis service. You have to call the bloody blue, like all those lines for crisis. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. It's fine that you put in that discretion, but that should have been the first thing that you say. I'm also not going to take on myself someone with bipolar, or that has been on or in psychosis and things like that, because it's not something that I want to, not by myself. I would not tell them, listen, I can't help you by. I would find someone that will help them. I would do it for free. I would not let someone suffer and just wash my hands and from it, and just say and that disclaimer should have come at the beginning, before all those promises.
And finally, if you are having severe problems with addiction, we're not going to be able to help you. This is a program only for people who are motivated to come off. We're not going to be able to motivate anyone to come off their medications. They need to want it for themselves deep down.
It does not explain the difference between addiction. A lot of people that are going to read this are going to, or hear this, they're going to say, but I'm addicted to the benzo, I'm addicted to SSRI. There's a difference between addiction and dependence. I'm not an expert on this too much, but basically people that are in benzo withdrawal don't like to call themselves addicted, because it's not a classic addiction where you crave but some do. I knew there are people that have cravings for it, and you definitely have it when if you took it for years and you're not afraid of that drug so much, like I was after a month, and you were fine, and then when you cut it, you have severe withdrawals. You'll look for I did it when it was too much. I took a rescue dose. It's called a rescue dose. That doesn't mean that you're, addicted, but people that are on opiates are also like starting from it's a dependency. It doesn't. You don't go from. A lot of people start because of their doctor. So what do you mean you don't have a problem with addiction? You have a problem with addiction. You're dependent. You're physically addicted to a drug.
So if you're having problems with addiction, this is not going to be a good fit for you. So this program is going to be a good fit for you if you're 100% committed to coming off your medications, because deep down,
this is like I'm sorry again. I'm sorry if Joseph, sorry. I'm sorry if your intentions are 100% pure. But what you do now, 100% committed to coming off that sounds like classical marketing for like a timeshare unit. Sorry. 100% committed to coming off your medication. Now you have to sign now. You have to. You can someone just talk to you and say, allow you to sort of like explain to him again, like I know we just saw this whole seminar, but I don't like I just don't. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not a grumpy man who's just looking to find bad things in things like that. There's really good, and I'm going to make positive videos about the people that really helped me, that were amazing. But this is. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Down, that you don't need them, and also you're prepared to address stresses that occur in your life with non-drug treatments. Next, you need to be willing to stop using substances like caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and ADHD meds. And finally, this program's going to be for you if you...
Completely true. But I don't know why he put it here. Like, with the nicotine, nicotine is also something that's very, very difficult to quit. I'm not sure that, again, I'm talking from like a peer level of someone who, there's a lot of people that smoke. Of course, I hate smoking. I'm OCD about smoking. I hate smoking. I hate that people litter. I hate that people smoke in my face. It's a horrible addiction. And it's also a dependence drug that's unfortunately legal. Yeah, caffeine is one thing. Nicotine is another. Caffeine can also be difficult to quit, but it's nothing like nicotine. It's very hard for a lot of people to quit smoking. It's almost as hard sometimes as benzos. Alcohol. If someone's taking alcohol while he's taking taking benzos, then or SSRIs, for example, is doing huge damage to himself, and that goes back to what he said before. Like it's an addiction. This is an addiction. This is an addiction. Caffeine is an addiction. So if you have an addiction problem, those are addiction problems. So what is he talking about? Like, he contradicts himself.
If you are ready to invest in solving this problem. And I say that because we're not the cheapest option out there. In fact, we don't take insurance. You can submit our bills to your insurance company for partial reimbursement, like some of our patients do. But we're out of network. And also, the fees to work with us, I'll be honest with you, it's not $50,000 to work with us, but it's also not $20,000 either. It's in line with what you might expect to spend for 3 months at a nice drug rehabilitation center.
But you're not a nice drug rehabilitation center where people are literally living in a space that looks like a hotel and have multiple doctors and nurses and social workers and therapists and everyone around them to hold their hand 24 hours 7 when they're having withdrawal symptoms and having classes every day that are either group or one-on-one. You are not that. You're working for, like, if in fact if $30,000 is what you'll have to pay for something like this, that's really cheap. That's actually really, really cheap considering just the staff around you. It's like, $30,000 is what you'll pay for a hotel for 3 months. It's a nice hotel. That's my opinion. Don't sue me.
And so if you meet these criteria, then there's no reason you can't safely discontinue your medications, just like Amelia,
like I said,
David, Samantha, and my other clients did. And so here's what to do next. If you want the most direct and simple way off medications, without mistakes, without errors, without setbacks, you simply want to get off in the fastest way.
You can't promise that. Setbacks can happen even if you do the most knowledgeable person. If someone got sick, you can't control if someone gets sick unless he's sitting all day in a room in a sterile environment, which I actually had to do because I was really scared. I had a setback from just having a cold. But, if someone has a serious virus or he's taking antibiotics, for example, and he needs to because he got an infection and he needs to treat it, then it's going to be a setback potentially. Not always. I don't want to scare anybody, but people have setbacks from illness. People can develop another health condition. People can be told that their loved one just had a stroke. People can be told and they'll have a setback because the anxiety would go through the roof. People, you can't promise those things.
Way possible. This is for you.
And if he's just saying if this is what you want, that this is for you, everyone wants it, mate. Everybody wants the same thing.
Simply click the link below and book a call. But time is of the essence.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not running a busy call center here, and these spots fill up quickly. And
this is literally only now, only today, רק היום in Hebrew. I don't know if he's Jewish, but maybe he understood what I just said. Just only today. If you don't do it now, in the next 20 minutes, this deal is available, but by the seats are disappearing and time is running out and all of this.
And also, we only have a certain amount of patients that we can take in this program before we hit capacity. And so if you're interested, it's time to book a call. And so now, you really have three choices that I see.
Oh gosh, even more.
You could do this with a doctor who maybe doesn't really have the training to do this, or maybe they've done it once or twice. They're kind of inexperienced. They're kind of a rookie.
You
could do this on your own, on the internet, researching the best way to come off medications, trying to figure it out, doing it doing it by yourself, on yourself, without ever having done it before. Or you could work with someone who has experience leading hundreds of people off their medications. The choice is really yours. And so you're here and you've watched the entire training. You want to come off your medications and you know that you don't want to do this journey alone. Take advantage of this opportunity right now. Simply click the link below and let's do this together.
Let's click the link below, finally. Oh, he's using this thing, calendary. I understand. Personal privacy and all of that. Yeah, I understand. Let's see if there's anything available. Yeah, there's heaps. One of the ways that I knew, I'm not going to say it, it's only, okay, so it's only like in December, it's only the 5th, but there's a few slots. The slots are available, so this is yesterday. This is, I'm on the 29th. This is US time, so it's in 2 days. So not in 2 days. Yeah, 2 days. Saturday. Well, today is already Friday here. Yeah, I assume that after that, he didn't open the calendar yet for more, or that he's getting into Christmas. I don't know. Let's see if I'm right. No, I can't go into January. He just didn't open I assume he didn't open the calendar. There's lots of slots here available. Those are actually, I assume he chose it in Brisbane time, yeah. Let's see what those times are in the US, which is where he is. I'm not sure where he is in the US, but this is US time. There we go. Let's say Pacific time. Okay, in the morning, first thing in the morning. I assume that. Let's just wait. Sorry, I need to change. No times available. Yeah, 1 to 3. Okay. And then here 12 to 2:30. Fair enough. So if this is a call directly with him, he obviously has some time to do this. It's half an hour. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking actually of booking a call, and I'm very happy for if you're watching it, Dr. Josef. I'm very happy for you to discuss this with me, and also to make comments and sorry I'm being harsh, but I'm just giving my honest opinion about this. I'm someone who actually been through it, so. I just don't like the fact that it's you didn't even mention the types and this information exists, even if with all my criticism about the fact that they don't use Mark Horowitz wrote about supplements, things that he actually admitted in a Zoom call that I had with him, that he didn't know much about CBD, so he did it and then he wrote basically don't use it. So if you don't know, why you write in such an important book, very important book, extremely important book, because now you can take this book and give it to your doctor and say, here's the proof that what I'm saying is right, and he's doing a hyperbolic taper, even though it's not like I said, I have a criticism about it, but it's still better than what you're talking about, like the 8 weeks linear tapers that they do. So that information exists, and if you can't hold people by the hand, like you said, and if you can't help people when they call you, when they call it at a funny hour because they're thinking about unaliving themselves or something like that, then don't do it. Honestly, you need to have that option. That your clinic should have a line for people, or or like even like a virtual group or something that someone can call 24 hours 7 and talk to a crisis support worker or something like that can help him. Even if he doesn't need to talk to you. He needs to talk to someone, a human being, another human being on the other side that understand what he's going through and understand that they need help. And yeah, like I said, I didn't buy it. I think that the way that this whole video is done is in a way to is basically just to basically, and then at the end you put all those disclaimer and then say this is very expensive, so don't and you can basically just from the beginning, I don't need to talk to anybody. I don't need to send an inquiry. I should have the fees. You shouldn't say it's not even 15,000. You should have said what they thought, 30,000, 50,000. I already knew before they sent this message because I talked to other benzo people and they tell me exactly how much he charges. So anyway, that was another very critical video of someone else. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I know that it seems like I just hate everybody and everywhere. It's not the case. And I don't do this video ever about private people that are going through this. I don't want people to get the impression that if they talk to me, they have to worry about their privacy. That's absolutely the opposite. I'm very, like when people are benzo harmed or something like that, the only people that I won't respect their privacy in a way, I'll criticize them. It's not a privacy, like he's a professional. People that are professional, people that promise things. And I'm happy for anybody who could, if I do this for money, and I did it yesterday for very little money, but I did because it was like a very long session. But if I help people with all the limitations that I have on myself, and mentioning that I'm not actually, like, I didn't go to I didn't spend $100,000 on medical school. I just have common sense, and I'm reading, and I have a good brain. I do have a degree in computer science and mathematics from Israel, which is a very difficult degree to get, and I'm starting next year to do a mental health course for peer workers, for people that with lived experience. So you don't need to be. It's not. A lot of it is not. Of course, it's very complex, but a lot of it is not. Is not that difficult to understand. You just need to follow patterns. At the end of the day, we live in the physical world, and the body has physical properties that can be measured. And the tapering, if you do the tapering right, if you get someone that will hold your hand when you need him to hold your hand and won't cost you $300 an hour for doing so, you're in a good place. In fact, I'm thinking of making a Facebook group, a new Facebook group, and encouraging people to get benzo buddies. So I'll be like, of course, be able to help people and talk there and give information, but also encourage other people to talk and ask questions and find information and never censor people, like for talking about things that can that I might have a personal opinion about. I just want people to feel better and to, just like what he's saying, like just do it in the safe way without scaring them to death. Okay? So anyway, guys, that's the end. Hope this was informative. If Dr. Josef is watching this, I'm really not trying to, I'm just saying what I see, and yeah, and I hope that you will, make a comment and explain what's happening here, and maybe I'm wrong, but. Yeah. Or learn from it, and which is the best thing to do, and just change the attitude and everything. Put the disclaimer at the front. Explain to people what makes them fit or not fit for it. Because I think the biggest sin that you did is basically build up these promises upon promises, and tell people that even if they're on multiple drugs, a lot of people that have serious side, like mental illnesses, that's how they end up like that, and then tell like. If you have serious addiction, and then mention, things that are addiction, and mate, Okay, I'm done. See you guys in the next video. Hope you learned from this, and yeah, stay safe. And if that video caused you any anxiety, I'm really, really sorry. I just want people to be aware, and I think a lot of people are looking for someone to give an honest, unbiased, criticism and judge the benzo coaches, paid or unpaid. And you can judge me too if you want to. I'm open for criticism. So if you think that what I'm doing here is shit, write it in the comments. Just be mindful, because actually people like blame me about the beating benzo one that they wrote a comment and it was deleted. I didn't delete any comments unless the comment itself was defamatory to people, like to Rosalind and David, so they called them names or something like that. Then I delete that cause comments, because people think they like me, but obviously I can't leave comments that are like that. The conversation needs to be respectful. And the second thing, and toward myself too. So if you curse me or you're trying to troll me, then yes, the comment will be deleted. But a lot of times the comments were deleted by I didn't even see them. They're not in the deleted list, and I thought maybe they're automatically deleted, but I didn't do it. So just to be clear. Okay, see you guys later, and yeah, hope you're good. See ya.